Here we go. Today I'm reading the first chapter of Aether Bound, The Rise of Lilith, Book 1. I'll be posting a new chapter each week to this channel, so I hope you love it. Let's get started. I'm just going to grab the book right here. You get the full, unadulterated experience here because I'm not going to edit, so you'll see everything. All right, so this is Aetherbound, The Rise of Lilith, Book 1. And this book actually was a Book Excellence Award finalist in 2023. So there you go. Very exciting. Chapter 1. A tray clattered onto the bar, stacked glasses rattling and crumpled cocktail napkins spilling across the polished wood. Hey, Lil! 6 blowjobs plus a whiskey with whipped cream for me, Virginia grinned as she moved the dirties off her tray and into the dish bucket. Gotta show 'em how it's done. I chuckled as I poured the rum runner I'd been shaking into a glass and dropped a fruit skewer and parasol on top. Another bachelorette party? Isn't this the 3rd one tonight? 'Tis the season. I pushed the fruity drink across the bar to the frat boy who'd just graduated. If he hadn't already told me his entire life story in a drunken slur, the Greek letters tattooed on his shoulder would have given him away. Add it to the tab, he shouted over the blast of a trumpet. He slid a single across the sticky counter. But this ish for you. He almost tipped his drink over. Thanks. I forced a smile, but didn't bother pulling the sodden bill from the counter. My hands were already setting out the shot glasses for the ladies with the pink, sparkly sashes and sloppy smiles. They're always so optimistic, and yet always underperform. Virginia took care of the dollar bill for me, putting it in the tip jar shaped like a grinning skull being swallowed by the kraken. Too bad, really. He's kind of cute in a puppy dog sort of way. I poured the Kahlua into the glasses with one hand as I shook the can of whipped cream with the other. Have fun. Not my type. That's right. You prefer the soulful, artistic type, like a certain trombone player, maybe? I couldn't help glancing at the bandstand in the corner. Silas was blasting a solo into the noise of tonight's crowd, the brass bell of his horn lifted high into the air. Too loud, I replied. Flashy. I slid the foamy shots toward Virginia, and she quickly arranged them on her tray. And that hat, really? Silas loved this ratty old gray fedora that he wore propped at an angle on his head. It was ugly as sin. It was so ugly, it was kind of cute. Not that I'd ever admit it to him or anyone else. Virginia shot me an incredulous half smile. The vaguely serpent-shaped pink cloud that wrapped her neck shifted and stuck out its tongue as if tasting the air. Deny it all you want, but he's a hottie, and the tension between the two of you is... She waved a hand toward her face and blew a lock of hair out of her eyes. I don't know how you sleep at night. I wiggled my fingers in the direction of the bachelorettes. Go show them how to have a good time and stop bugging me. I'm busy. I wasn't sure if I was talking to Virginia or the demon draped over her shoulder, but since no one else could see it, I was careful to make sure my comments wouldn't raise any eyebrows. Luckily, it turned its attention away from me and toward the ladies she would be serving. I turned to the next customer at the bar, a middle-aged woman wearing clothes designed for someone half her age. She was trying to get Ty's attention, even though he was halfway down the bar with a crowd of admirers, and I was standing right in front of her. I leaned forward, making sure she could hear me. What can I get you? She hardly glanced at me, her eyes all for Ty's pretty boy looks and flair with the bottles. My partner behind the bar was a performer, entertaining the crowd nearly as well as Silas's band. He was always a favorite with the ladies, and we kept him in the middle station so that his audience could spread out and more people could watch. How about one of those? She pressed her lips into a sultry pout and leaned farther onto the bar, angling her chest toward her target. I glanced around the crowded bar, looking for a better match for her. Ty's a bit tied up. I'd like to tie him up myself, the woman interrupted as she rested her chin on the heel of her hand. Quick. She was a wit. Or thought she was. I may have gagged in the back of my throat a bit, but I made sure to keep it off my expression. She was here for a good time, the yellow demon on her shoulder whispering to her of lost youth and second chances. If I had to guess, I would have pegged her as a recent divorcee who needed a one-night stand and no regrets in the morning. She was good looking, probably an early trophy wife who'd been dismissed for the latest model. A touch too much Botox, a bit high maintenance, but still young enough to be a tempting conquest for a younger man. I had just the ticket. I started mixing up another rum runner. Like I said, Ty's working. But I bet if you take this over to the cute guy in the muscle tee over there, I pointed to frat boys' table, you might find exactly what you're looking for. Divorcee shifted to check out the frat boys' table. There were 4 of them, all wearing neon board shorts and tank tops. Frat boy had the best muscles of the group, but the others weren't bad either. One of them had a dimple on his cheek that would have made Zac Efron jealous. I imagined any or all would do for her just fine. She hummed appreciatively as she surveyed the younger men. Might be right. If I'm wrong, your next drink's on me. If not, I shook the tip jar and lifted an eyebrow to make my point. The yellow demon took the bait, pulling her toward the boys. If you're right, I'll double your bet. Since the fruity drinks we served up weren't cheap, that was a pretty good payout, especially since I knew I'd win. Frat boy was already opening the table to her. She wiggled her hips in a little two-step to the beat and set the drink down. I grinned. Frat boy was going to have his hands full with that one. My eyes drifted back to the bandstand again. Silas was singing now, a poppy tune about the rhythm of the beach in the summertime. It was a good night. Busy, just the way I liked it. Less time to think and make mistakes. I glanced out the open window toward the ocean waves that could just be heard between sets when traffic wasn't too busy. The moon was out and full, the sky clear. I wiped down the counter in front of me. A woman slid into a narrow gap between a busty blonde and a heavy-set guy wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Her hair was a wild mass of graying curls, barely held back with a long, flower-patterned scarf that tied around her head and draped over one shoulder. A lifetime of laughter hid behind twinkling blue-gray eyes and deep within the lines of her face. She wasn't our usual clientele, to be sure, but she didn't carry a demon on her shoulder, so she was here by her own choice. And sometimes the older cloud was the most interesting to serve. Did I say that right? I'm not sure I did. And sometimes the older crowd was the most interesting to serve. What do you have? I asked. A storm is coming, she replied. Her voice warbled slightly, but I could still hear her easily enough over the sound of the band starting their next song. I frowned, racking my brain as I set a cocktail napkin in front of her. Afraid I don't know that one. Is it like a fog cutter? She shook her head. I know who you are and what you can do. You won't be able to hide much longer. I sucked in a startled breath, but before I could flinch away, she grabbed the flower-topped pen from the bun in my hair and started doodling on the napkin. I don't know what you're talking about. She couldn't possibly know about my little gift. I'd been careful. None of my coworkers knew anything about the demons or my visions. If they found out, I'd be fired, or worse. My eyes were drawn to the little white square in the old lady's drawing. 2 crescent moons mirrored each other on either side of a circle. The center was filled with what looked like a lowercase letter H with 3 crosses attached. Your abilities are growing stronger. They'll come for you soon. Her tongue poked out of the corner of her mouth as she retraced the design, making the lines heavy with ink. Goosebumps prickled across the back of my neck. I glanced toward the bouncer at the door. Carlos was sitting in his chair, checking IDs. He'd come running if I called, but the little old lady didn't seem particularly dangerous. A nutter maybe, but not threatening, I hoped. She gazed at me with clear eyes and pushed the finished drawing toward me. It's your birthright, a gift that comes with responsibility. Listen, lady, I'm happy to make you a drink, and you can doodle all you want, but you don't know anything about me or my birthright. My childhood was my business and no one else's. I tugged on the cuffs of my long-sleeved Hawaiian shirt to cover the scar on my forearm. Her smile was kind but pitying. Do not reject who you are, young sister. Your time has come. She pressed the napkin forward again. You're going to need this. A male shout and a few female screams drew all eyes to the far side of the bar, near our 3rd bartender and backup bouncer, Bruce. Bruce was part Samoan and looked like a smaller version of The Rock, if you squinted your eyes a little. Usually no one wanted to mess with him, which is why he was stationed farthest from the door. The man was a teddy bear, always ready with a smile. That is, until a punch was going to be thrown. Then all bets were off. He could pound heads with the best of them. Bruce flipped up the gate at the end of the counter and stomped his way out into the crowd. I couldn't see what was going on between the customers, but ephemeral lightning flashed between hulking blue-gray demons that only I could see. The spirits growled and hissed, urging their hosts to violence. Carlos, I shouted, calling in reinforcements from the front door. Bruce could slow things down, but the bouncers would eject the troublemakers in a heartbeat. It's what they were paid to do. I needn't have worried, though. He and his partner, James, were already pushing their way through the crowd to Bruce. Within minutes, Bruce was back behind the bar, and the two bouncers were shoving a couple of biker-looking guys in black leather jackets toward the front door. A woman followed behind, mascara smeared beneath her eyes, ruining her otherwise perfectly coiffed rockabilly style. Cyclists, I joked as I turned back toward the old lady with the frizzy hair, always getting into trouble. The woman was gone. I scanned the room, but she was nowhere to be seen. One of the frat boys stood in her place, the one with the dimple. Another rum runner. And if you've got another friend hiding somewhere, send her my way, would you? The napkin lay on the counter beneath his hand. I don't know what made me do it, but I surreptitiously slid it away and shoved it in my pocket. I'll keep an eye out. That's the end of chapter 1. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for my few little mistakes in there. But if you liked the story and want to continue hearing me read it, please go ahead and like this episode, this chapter, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything in the future. And next week, I will have chapter 2 ready for you on Friday. Thanks so much for listening.